So you want me or you kind of give a quick rundown of what the post credit scene is?
Could you do it? I feel like
We go
you
for
would
it.
give it justice. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess before the post credit, there's a pre credit scene,
Yeah.
um, where it everything's kind of done, and it cuts to like this shot of just like New York or whatever it was, and the sky turns purple, like in No Way Home. You're like, oh shit, okay. And then it cuts to a jail cell, big bright light through the window, and you look through the window, and it winds up being the Vulture from Homecoming, which is Michael Keaton's character, and he didn't seem like confused or he didn't care. Like he just felt himself and looked around and looked at the mirror and was like, oh, I hope they serve better food here. I was like, what? I'm like, dude, you're in a brand new spot. At least in Venom, like he's like, what's going on? Holy shit. Like here he's just like,
Yeah.
oh, I hope the food's better. I was like, what the so and then it cuts to like a news station, and they were like, oh, Toombs, I forgot what his real name was in there. And he's like, oh, he mysteriously was in a jail cell and no one knows why. So we're setting him free. And then they show him being set free. And then the credits roll. You know, it's so yeah.
Yeah.
And then real quick, Brian said, how do you do reshoots and push it back without Andrew Garfield cameo? Yes, exactly. Exactly, man. I think that was one of the issues with this movie was it was a lot of hype,
Mm.
by pushing it back and all that crazy stuff, and then not doing it. But so there's that, and then it cuts to the post credit scene or the mid credit scene where there's a car driving through like this desert kind of highway, whatever, and you see it's Morbius, and he's looking at GPS, blah blah blah, and he pulls up to like this middle of nowhere kind of place, and he's like looking around, and then this big thing comes flying in, and it winds up being the Vulture in his big Vulture suit. Lands, and then he tells them, he goes, oh, Morbius, I seen you on TV, blah blah blah, and he's like okay. He goes, oh, I'm still learning this world, which I'm like, okay. And then he dropped the Spider-Man name. He goes, I think it's all because of Spider-Man, right? And then it goes from like, oh, I think it's because of Spider-Man, but then Jared Leto doesn't react. He's like, who? He just kind of like
Yeah.
stares at him, and then he's like, oh, I think me and you could do a lot of good. And then Morbius is like, yeah, I like that. And then that's it. And I literally sat and I'm like, what the hell just happened? Like, that's the stupidest post-credit scene. How can you ruin this? How can you ruin this? You have Spider-Man. You have two Spider-Mans in your pocket. Tom Holland, he's MCU. You can't really play with that toy. You have two Spider-Man. How do you mess this up? How? So I don't know, man. What do you think?
So yeah, it was just for me watching him come out of the first, what is it, beginning credit scene. The way I thought of it was like, wow, if he ends up in a prison and he's in already handcuffs, why would you let him free? Why would you do that? It doesn't matter if he's from your universe or not. He was a criminal in another universe. He should probably stay a criminal. Maybe interrogate him. Maybe, figure out why he was a bad guy. No, he's in, prison clothes. Let's just let him free. That didn't make sense to me. So that was just like, what? And then, yeah, Morbius, you're right. He didn't question to, what's his name? Not Vulcan. Is it Vulcan?
Vulture.
Vulture. He didn't question him on teaming up. Morbius is a goddamn doctor. Has way more common sense than to just team up with nobody. It's like, what, dude? Yeah. It just, none of it made sense. They just threw in a Spider-Man name just to throw it in. Even on the GPS, like when I was looking at the GPS, you see that there's like roads, right? The little white lines. Mm-hmm. And then like he's driving off the white lines. Why would you meet off to a place where even the GPS is like, oh, we don't know what that is, and meet up with a guy that you don't know? It just gave me Stranger Danger vibes, and I was like, I'm not here for it. I don't like that.
Yeah, I love that too. Yeah. So I mean, it just obviously like some time passed from before the credits rolled to where him being free to the post credit, because now he's like, oh, I'm still figuring it out, and somehow he has the suit. I was like, but I'm like, you didn't build any of it. Like your smart guy built it in
Yeah.
the other universe. So I'm like, how'd you get this? And then it's all alien technology, right? It's all based off of the Shikari, from the first Avengers movie. And so it just none of it makes sense. None of it makes sense.
Yeah.
Brian said Stranger Danger. He liked that one. Yeah.
For real, man.
It just it really was some guy that's on the news. They're like, hey, this guy who no one knows about him, like, oh, he said to meet up. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna meet him up. Yeah, legit Stranger Danger. But it just it blew my mind that they didn't put a Spider-Man. There's 3 Spider-Mans now. Like one's off limits, and you got 2 other.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get I don't get it. I don't get it. But this is probably the worst post-credit scene I've ever seen.
Yeah.
In any movie. Not even just MCU or whatever. Just it didn't hype. Post-credit scene is supposed to hype you up, right? Did you feel hyped up after this one?
Not at all. I felt like even DC's post-credit website did way more for me than than this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Venom one at least kind of, you saw Spider-Man and all that, stuff that happened in their post-credit scene. This one was just like, I don't care. I don't care. So, God, so disappointing.
Yeah.
It's so much more disappointing than I even expected, which really says a lot. But yeah, I don't know. So one thing we didn't ask is, will you see it again? Will you see Morbius or watch it again?
No. No. I had to think about it. I was like, did I possibly miss out on something? Did I miss out on a bigger theme? I'm trying to really bring it back into my head. And no, I don't want to see it again. There's no callbacks to this movie to where I'm like, man, like, can I try to pick this apart and get a greater meaning or something? No, none of that. Like I saw it once. It was a waste of, I don't know, $14 at the movies. So nah, I wouldn't I wouldn't see it again. I wouldn't see it again streaming. I'm good. I'm good. If they would have included Spider-Man, I probably would have wanted to see it again. But because they missed out on those opportunities, they won't catch me seeing this. What about you?
Yeah. No way. I mean, there's, like you said, there's nothing worth watching again, and like I said, maybe if they put him in another movie, which it looks like that's what they're going to do, with the Vulture, I guess. I don't know what they're going to do, like a Sinister Six. It kind of defeats the purpose of Morbius being the good guy in this one. Also Venom is also kind of good, which makes no sense either. So at least Morbius is a kind of good guy. Like he doesn't mean to do bad stuff. Just he's the instincts take over. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing. I can see him in the next movie, and I feel like I won't miss a beat. So that's how I feel. And then one other question I have for you: do you think this should have been out on streaming, or the theater release was a good one? Because one thing that came out of COVID, at least movie wise, was a lot of companies started realizing certain movies don't need to come out in theaters for it to do well. Like you can really hype up your streaming service. I don't know what Sony has, but I'm sure they could have teamed up with somebody out, on Paramount or Peacock or whoever. But do you think it would have been better on streaming, or should they have kept it on theaters?
That's a good question. So I feel like with the amount of hype this movie had,
So Brian said, "Cruel and unusual punishment after watching this twice."
I swear, that's abuse right there. Um,
Right.
if they would have put this out on streaming instead, I feel like it would have just flopped more. It would have just,
Mm.
at least at the theater, if you walk out of a movie, you kind of look like the bad guy, even if it is a bad movie. People tend to give that kind of look when you walk out of a movie theater early on before it finishes. But if you
Mhm.
put this on streaming, right, and you realize mid movie, like, hey, this doesn't really feel right, you can just turn the channel and no one's gonna judge you, right? So I feel, and people will know about that. The ratings and cable providers, they'll know if you stop watching a movie, and that would be a news headline. Like, it was so bad, even at home, people were turning the channel.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would have had much effect. I don't think it would have been better for the experience. I think people would have seen, I don't want to call it crap, but seen the bad work that was done in this movie and
Uh,
just turned the channel off, or they would have like watched something else. They would have watched the animated series and caught that Morbius.
yeah. Hey, thank you, William, for following. Appreciate it.
Cool name, bro. I love it.
And then Brian said, team up with CW on the CW app. I think CW is with Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers is with HBO
DC.
Max. And
Oh,
DC
well
and
then.
stuff, and DC, yeah, Warner Brothers, DC. So I don't know if CW would have been the good spot for it. I don't know what Sony. Are they part of Universal? I think Universal has shit. Paramount. I don't know.
That's
I don't know.
tough. Yeah,
I
I'm not sure.
I think I would have been a little bit more forgiving of this movie if it was streaming
Yeah.
rather than spending money to go see it. But also, yeah, maybe I wouldn't have been so disappointed, because at least if it's a bad movie and you're streaming, you're like, like
Mm,
I didn't waste that much. Like I already got the streaming service because everyone has everything now. Um, but since you kind of like go to theaters and you kind of like take a little, 2 hours out of your day at least, so
yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I can see like halfway through being like, ugh, yeah, let's skip this scene. Fast forward, fast forward. Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
need to see Matt Smith dancing.
That's so cringe.
It was. But cool, man. Anything else before we move on?
Nah, that's it
Yeah.
for me.
Cool. If you're watching live, stick around. We got another one, with another movie we're gonna review. And if you're watching on replay, appreciate it. Make sure you like, subscribe. We're on our way to 200 subs. We're trying to get to 200 on YouTube. Make sure you also check us out on our Facebook group. Link is in the description, and all of the other Nerd Huddle shows. We're the only movie TV show review kind of show, and all the Nerd Huddle kind of does a lot of sports. So Nerd Huddle, Dynasty Pylon. If you like your football, that's really the spot to go. So, but yeah, thank you
Thanks.
guys for watching this one. And if you're, like I said, if you're watching live, stick around.